No, I can. You can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Good, yeah, it's your turn.
So that it was Maria.
I think it's a very interesting question, and I think this is the clue. And this is connected with which is the model of society when we had to build in Europe. I think in our research we have discovered that this is a question connected to the policies, to the public policies. And also we have detected a discrimination for the different approach and the different treatment that migrants and refugees have in our country. Spain, unlike other countries, there is a national language program for migrants or for those who are denied asylum. Therefore, to take Spanish courses, they must go to different centers. If your application of asylum is denied, you are in a different places. You have to go to entities, private, to adult education center, to municipal center. After you have high literacy, you can go to the university. But in short, it says for refugees in Spain, they have we don't have language services for migrants, and it's a question connected with the framework of our policies. Okay, obviously this is a thing that is not in our hands, but teachers, people, researchers, we can influence, we can participate in the debate, in the national debate. I think only in Spain we have to put on this table that only Spanish language course is provided by the official language school is officially recognized. The rest of kind of support for language services for adult refugee migrants is non-official learning. And okay, we don't have any support about that. We don't have a curriculum of reference, and we don't have any another kind of support. Only teaching and volunteering, as Dulcinea asked for us, and okay, the effort of a lot of people we are working at that point in Spain. I think this is the point. No, we are fighting in order to achieve a social justice. This is a frame of inclusion system, and this is the thing that I can to underline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what I want to, if I can participate as well at this moment, I wanted to add something else. Yes, is it a question of, yes, knowing everyone, this person is a refugee? I don't think so. It's not what I'm trying to say. But being aware of the existence that some of our international students could have special needs is just a good way. And changing in general the whole pedagogical system, instead of putting them away inside, instead of having language practices where all of them are together, perhaps we should think about that. That's the only thing I want to put here. Yeah, only that. You can think and reflect on that.
Thank you. That's also the target of my question, that you have them together with other international students in a class and teaching them the language as the others. At the same time, we also learned from the special courses from our preparatory school where I teach and Andreas is teaching, that they have specific needs, they need specific support. So how to teach refugee students, and also including the experiences of Dulcinea that could be they could be at risk in the classroom. So what is the best to include them concerning the language, first of all?
I found out, for example, that yes, a very short example, as I said before, the plurilingual portrait, and letting them say by themselves how many languages they know and they speak in the language classroom, as all the other students in the classroom, is just a way of helping them to see that they've got certain advantages because they are multilingual. That, for instance, is a very small example.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but this is one of my hobby horses. I think that in general we sit on tremendous asset when it comes to the linguistic and cultural competences that are in the classroom, but we lack teachers who know how to use this. So instead they let's not go there. Let's not ask. And I think this is something that we have to work on and to work with. But I also know that at least at the technical university where I'm working, there are a lot of teachers who come up with the idea that there is no culture. I'm teaching math. There is no culture.
Not true.
And of course, but that only goes to show that there is culture, right?
Yeah.
But it's something of an uphill battle, because obviously there are other concerns also about pedagogical inclusion. But I think that if you work with inclusiveness, that's good for everyone. I mean, regardless if whoever you are, that's something that should benefit you, and hopefully benefit the teachers as well.
So you would not say that there are differences actually between the migrants having a background, like concerning the cultural background in the acquisition, concerning the acquisition of terminology. For example, you said math. That means also the acquisition of this academic language. So they're actually all in an equal starting point.
I mean, I think that the best thing to remember is that you can't assume too much about people. You don't know them. You can't label a person as refugee or non-refugee and think that you know a lot about that person. And of course, I'm not saying that people are assuming that much about persons. I think that they ignore their ignorance in a way. Well, I don't know anything about these people, and I'm not that interested. I just want to know how much physics they know before they come to my course.
Okay, but they are students already, so that's perhaps interesting, because we were talking about different groups also, those who were entering the university, or those who were preparing for university, and then those who were not having finished the exam, and some have already an exam, and some have an PhD even. So we have a different target groups here now mixed in one group. So what do you think about these differences? Do we have to make a difference between like cultural backgrounds, or is it more about being already introduced into the studies, having finished the studies? So what again about this question of inclusion? How to best?
Well, if I can just very briefly respond to that, then I will mute myself. Yeah. I think that we've been very good for teachers to know more about where the students are, and this goes for all kinds of students, because usually you come to a classroom and there might be a theater full with students, and you have no ideas, but there are easy tools to find out stuff about them in a very, I mean, that every question might provoke an emotional reaction. We don't know that, but I think there are many non-intrusive ways of finding out where people see their challenges, or where they are by means of self-assessment. And this is something that probably teachers should do for themselves as well. So I don't think that there is a challenge for sure. But I think that you have that anyway, and it might be, you will have more of a challenge with some people than others. But I think that as a teacher, I think that you have to start with work with yourself.
On the other hand, or yes, going a bit further on what we are saying, Björn, there is also a benefit of having any type of different cultures inside the classroom. It's not about perhaps knowing how much physics they know. Just to take your example, it's about knowing how they can solve a problem that has to do with physics, and perhaps allowing them to solving the problem from different perspectives, from their just national context. Perhaps it could be a more enriching, I don't know, perhaps it would be, or perhaps yes, the discussion of seeing the different viewpoints on how to solve that problem could be a different pedagogical system of doing things that that imply inclusion, no? Mm.
For sure. And I think that and I'm thinking about myself, I don't have to criticize other people. I can criticize myself quite freely. I think that we often, at least in Sweden, we say that cultural diversity is such a great thing, and you leads to creative new solutions and new perspective on things. But then we design assignments that actually are hindered by cultural diversity. So you have to, if you want to make sure that people can contribute, well, then you have to have assignments where they can make a contribution with different perspective. Otherwise, people will just feel it, it's frustrating that, well, you have to tell these people all the basics about, whatever subject they are teaching. So again, I think that teachers are key here.
Yeah.
But then I think that we can in whatever normal classroom as well, there is a tremendous width of experience and backgrounds. People come from different situations. They may look similar, but for sure, if you scrap on them, they aren't. So this is also some sort of diversity that we need to deal with, and this might be easier, and then that's good. Then we can we can learn there. We don't need to go to the most explosive situations to start practicing and learning in those situations. I think that that's probably the hard way to do it.
Yeah, that brings us to the conclusion of this question: which other competences do students need? Shifts to the question: which competences do teachers need, that you mentioned? So, what do teachers have to learn, and also to acknowledge to be successful in their teaching and in their way of including students, international students, whether they are refugees or not. But I want to come back to one question about, because we were talking the last two workshops within this webinar about the question of terminology. What all of you mentioned this in a way, like the academic language, which they need, international students need to be successful later in their studies concerning writing, presenting, and so on. But also terminology in the sense of operators, to understand what are the tasks or genres we mentioned. Is there a common, let's say, European language or European study system which is difficult for non-European students? Means here in this sense also refugee students. What would you say about that?
Yes, there is. I totally believe it is. So, for example, I know that I was brought up in Germany, and I know a bit about the German system. And I know, for example, that my Spanish students, when they go to Germany, it's the whole academic system, which is a bit different, that at the very beginning, all of them all international students have certain types of problems till they learn step by step and they accommodate to that idea. But the same happens when they go to Great Britain, exactly the same, or when they go to other, all our institutions, and the same happens with German students when they come to Spanish ones. I mean, it's just that all our institutions have different systems. And then when we are talking about academic language, I wanted to add one thing. No one of us is native in academic language? No one. No, I'm not a native speaker, not in Spanish, not in English, not in any of the other languages I know. So everyone has to learn the academic language. So again, I'm coming to the idea of, can we do it in another way? Is it possible to do it another way? Or is it fine enough? Are we having the results we want to have with what we're doing till right now? That is my question. So.
But you would say that the difference between the countries is already, European countries is already quite decisive, which we were realizing in the last workshop last week also, when we looked at different kinds of essays. But how difficult must it be for people coming from non-European countries? Or is this the same?
I think for sure the Europeans, I mean, the Bologna system has sort of made some things easier. Between but I think that listening to what I hear from students coming to Sweden from South Europe, there is still a lot of differences behind the ECTS. So once again, I think that you can't assume that it's usually not a good thing to think too much in terms of nations. Even though it's hard to avoid when we talk about internationalization, because people might come from, wherever, but that doesn't necessarily say too much about it. Of course, I mean, I'm not saying that we shouldn't try to figure out or learn about what is the educational system like in India or whatever, but I think that it's very easy to set up. There are these online guides, think about this when you go to Spain, or don't do this in Portugal, and stuff like that. And I think that there is some validity to all of this, but then you meet one individual person who might have a very special upbringing or different route through it.
Yeah, but I would like to hear Andreas Wiebel to this question. What do you think about? Is there a difference between European international students and non-European? It was also about finding solutions for different tasks, how to discuss, to talk about different discourses that are, as he said in his presentation, not known to the students that he was teaching in the preparatory school.
I would address that question in two ways. I mean, firstly, now being in Australia, I mean, okay, Maria mentioned the UK, then it doesn't fit what I was about to say, but majority-wise, the European Union or EU states, they have a state-funded education system, more or less, and UK is a little bit exceptional, but then like so many other countries in this world, they have like a private funded education system. And that means like when you plan to study, you must have money or you must get a bank loan. But when you pay that money, then you get pampered. I exaggerate a little bit, but so the students over here, for example, in Australia, they get a good service because they have the consumer position because they pay for it. Whereas in Europe, at least I would say in Germany, if you're a student, then yeah, you have to work hard for yourself, and you have a lot of soft skills like to get through. And if you don't, then you fail. I mean, engineering is like 50% failure rate, dropout rate, for example, and that has to do because the task is too difficult and people don't have the talent, don't put too much effort in it, and but still you need to have a lot of skills like to manage the workload, let's say like that, and the professors or the lecturers, of course they would teach, they'd do it in a good way, to do it in a bad way, but they would not provide it like in the school, in the high school way, that okay, I pamper you through that you get the test, because yeah, he's not dependent so much in a public fund system on how many students would pass the test or not. Like he wouldn't get fired if it's like less than 70% passing the test. It's just giving that perspective from my experience over here. And then the second thing is, yeah, I mean, it comes back to the status again. If you are an international student, the other colleagues mentioned it as well, then normally if you plan to study in Europe from a non-European country, then you must be able to afford it. Like there's some I don't know what's the border, I think like 10,000 euros. It must be on the bank account to prove that you are independent enough to get your funding while you're studying. So it must be a middle class person, and that's kind of a big difference, because this person normally has a decent education and is trained even from abroad, from any country from abroad, with what's the ideas, what's the concept. I Google which university is the best in Spain, what's the best for this subject I want to study. So that's different starting points. Whereas in the opposite, I totally agree with what Björn said, that you never know. I mean, I had super good, smart refugee background students from Syria, which aced everything. And yeah, within 1 year, and then they were like doing perfect in German system. But just in generally, you can of course like bring up these objective facts, I would say.
Thank you for this comment also concerning the different conditions that people bring, and or that they are gifted or not gifted to start anew in a new country. And this aspect of funding is also very important, for example, for Germany. As we heard in the last week, that we had this huge Integra program in the last, how many years now? 7 years, which was given a lot of money, not just for the teaching, but also for the students. Like they got this funding to prepare for the university, if they have an exam or not, but they got this chance. And as you mentioned, some used this chance very well. Someone from the listeners, but also someone mentioned that he sees quite a big difference between non-European and European students, and for himself had still quite struggling learning the Spanish language, coming from afar, and perhaps also this very different language he has to learn from his mother tongue, but first language, let's say, that's his first language he learned. Yeah, I have another question, and this is about what you mentioned, Andreas, at the end, where, and the title of this webinar. So where are we heading to concerning this education, language education? You mentioned 2 good points. One is like we have to change also the preparation concerning this increase of a need of preparation, and changing the test formats, because people will be already prepared abroad, not only in our European countries before they come to study here. So this is not in the future, but this is happening now. We're preparing programs where people can prepare abroad to learn the language, preparatory courses online, and they will come here and are already prepared. Others come here and don't have this starting point. So this is again a difference between these international students who can prepare well and those who come here and have to start from scratch because they perhaps were not planning to come here, because they didn't, here I say like to the country they flee to, because they didn't want it actually. to go there. So again, also this question of motivation to do that. So what do we expect for the future? What do you think is needed more, and what is the risk also for those who don't have perhaps this support before? So the INGENIERIA already mentioned the professionalization of the teachers concerning Spain. So, and I think Maria mentioned that also, that those who are voluntarily teaching need more support. And we heard that not just those, but also we academic teachers need support that's concerning our perspectives, how we look at the students, and how we are ready also to learn more about inclusiveness, not just concerning the newly arrived, but what are the challenges and what is needed for the future for language education, if we see that this migration is not stopping?
No, it won't be stopping.
I think
yes, just one thing, because I have class in 10 minutes, but I just wanted to just say that we need teacher training, of course, but there's also the understanding that we need a critical understanding of culture in our teachers, and stop equating cultures to nations, and know concepts like the fourth world and the social economic class, how it plays out at university, similarities across cultures when they share the similar status. So when we talk about inclusiveness and teacher training and intercultural competence, we need to bring to the table like a deeper, more expansive understanding of critical concepts of culture, which I think it's being touched on a very superficial level, at least in language training for teachers. So not because we're language teachers, we need to have this very like folk, festivity-oriented, food-oriented concept of culture in the classroom, because the situations are very complex. What they bring to the table is very complex, and we need to be, like developing very deep, and also that it has to do, and this is like a more complex issue in itself, but how do we teach inclusiveness when certain policies are contradicting what we're teaching at the European level? We can foster inclusiveness, but this like falls into certain contradictions with many public policies. So it's very difficult, and I think that we need to really dive deep into very conflicting and problematic issues that have to do with culture.
And I would just...
Thank you so much, Lucinia. Just a moment, because she asked me to excuse her for the last 10 minutes. She has to go to her class, of course. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Bye.
It's an honor. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I would like to hang on to that and say that it's also... it is a crucial question on how we understand that, and I think that also we are sort of stuck in the system, and it's not only language teaching. For example, the traditional language teachers, well, now we're teaching German, no German, only German in this classroom, and then they go out and they speak, half Arabic, half German, half French, or whatever. So we need to let reality come into the language classrooms in a way that we haven't really been able to in a good way. I mean, some presumably have, but speaking from my limited experience, we have a long way to go. And also there is a bigger challenge. We're talking about individualized learning, and of course this goes with language learning and any other forms of learning, which then goes against the economical demands that we teach more students with fewer hours and so on. So that's a huge challenge. Where I think there are lots of things that we can do. I think, for example, artificial intelligence can probably help us out somewhere. Maybe not today, but maybe tomorrow, if they haven't taken our jobs by then. Yeah, so that's something that we need to address, I think, on a more systemic level.
Yeah, thank you, Andreas.
I just want to add one more time what I started to say, that I'm assuming that it goes the same way like like with the English language. Like for this particular group, not speaking about refugees anymore but general international students, then when it comes to testing, they will just choose any test center which is nearby and easy to access, right? I mean, if you want to do a TOEFL test or IELTS, you would not fly to Cambridge, but you would do it in your own hometown or in your own capital. And so if it gets to that certification, that's already happened also with German. I don't know about Spanish and Swedish so much, but with German, definitely it's going to be a business. Yeah, there's certain companies opening up. You can buy this course online, and it helps you to get through the test. But still, there will be still enough students, I guess, which will later on have the necessity or which want to continue learn when they are, for example, in Germany, and they think like, hey, I'm studying literature, it's not enough, the C1 level, or I have to repeat, I have to dig deeper, and I need to get into the technical language, or I want to learn something about history. So then I go to the SEMS, for example, and just do, while I'm studying, still training my language. And so it will diversify, but as also Björn just said, there will be so many online options and KI-based options and training options that people not necessarily need to fly around the world, which is good, of course, as well, and convenient to just take a test or to get the language training.
But does this also change in terms of when they want to study, like they come to a European country and want to study there and prepared completely abroad? Andreas, do you think it makes a difference? Because we were talking about this cultural insights you need, not only like cultural, ethnocentric culture, but I'm talking about learning culture and European system, study system, how to get to know that if you studied completely the language abroad.
Sure. I mean, I have very good memories when I had not refugees background, but just other Erasmus students in the course room, and they came from France, from Spain, from Italy, and it was wonderful. Of course, it was a great exchange and super nice and clever students, and that's a very big benefit. And as I said, I'm assuming that still this will happen, but the masses will go the other way, the cheaper, the more convenient. And of course, all around the world, there are also good teachers, maybe not mother tongue or original Bio Spain or Bio Deutsche teacher in Asia teaching the language, and then they get a different vibe of European culture from third parties or from the videos or from the KI then.
Let's come back to the initial point of what are the big challenges in teaching refugee students or study applicants with refugee background. As I heard from you in the last 2 hours, we have perspectives to include that are not just concerning the student, but also the teacher, then the economic, political situation. And for the future, we have to think about also the very quick changing of how we actually study, if we go abroad to study abroad, or if we just stay at home and study abroad, which is the new way you mentioned, Andreas. This is for refugees perhaps not the option, because they are fleeing to another country, so they cannot stay in their home country, and actually they didn't want to. So for them, it's still the problem. They are on site, and they have to get along with everyday life, to get along in a new society, and also to get along with the study society they dig into. And as I heard, it's very important to include them not just in terms of the terminology for studying, but include them in the classes and let them also meet other people and share not just their status being refugee, but their status as being a multilingual gifted person, bringing more to the class than just that language need, but also what they bring to the class. So I found that very interesting. Thank you very much for this conversation, and I learned a lot, and I hope you too, the listeners, which today are mute because it's a webinar format for someone new. But thank you very much also for the last 2 weeks, and you will be able to also listen to this webinar again. We recorded this webinar. Thank you very much. Thank you for the speakers coming here.
Thank you as well.
Thank you.
It has been a pleasure.
Yes.
Thanks also to the chat. Sorry for not being able to read everything and answer everything.
Yeah, true. Thank you. It has been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much. And hello to Spain, to Sweden, and hope to see you there again.
Exactly. Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.